as Yuji and Higuruma are currently fighting Sukuna, and Sukuna is trying to beat the allegations in court. A fight that a lot of people have completely forgotten is that Uraume and Hakari is still ongoing, and they're actually still fighting, with Hakari just hitting his jackpot. And today I'll be talking about why this fight will be generational and maybe one of the better fights in JJK. What would happen when the strongest gambler in history, Kinji Hakari, fights the strongest simp in history, Uraume? Now, it's always possible that Hakari will abandon the fight and choose to fight Sukuna while Maki faces Uraume, as that was actually my original prediction all the way back in February when chapter 215 came out, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, let's actually discuss how Jackpot Hakari versus Ice Star Uraume would go down. So trust me, you're definitely going to want to watch this one all the way until the end. So be sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton, thank you. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content on this channel. I make a ton of crazy theory videos, spoiler videos on chapters when they come out, power scaling analysis, and less than 10% of people who actually watch my channel are subscribed. So trust me, if you love JJK, you won't regret it. And of course, thank you to the special grade members of the channel. Let us get right into this. So before I actually break down how this fight would go, I'm going to briefly talk about how strong each of them are so we're all on the same page. Now, as for Kinji Hakari, right, the strongest gambler in history, the man who actually uses skill to seize luck, I do think he is quite powerful. Recently, I did make a video explaining why I actually think he's way stronger after the time skip, but just generally, now that he's got his jackpot, as we all know, he's going to be an absolute beast since his reverse curse technique is monstrous, it can heal him automatically, and also it gives him an incredible stat boost as well, pretty much in his attack, speed, power, durability, in every way, he just becomes far stronger. And of course, Hakari's domain is actually rigged so that he constantly keeps hitting jackpots after he's hit the first one, because as they say, the house always wins, and Hakari's domain is the casino, it is the house, so it's rigged that he always hits jackpot. As he has many ways to rig his domain, the first one is increased probability, which will pretty much keep him alive and give him pseudo immortality until he hits another jackpot, or increased spins, which drastically actually increases the chances of hitting another jackpot, so much so that it's an extremely hidden detail that's not even in the double page spread that Hakari provides. Funny enough, like a real casino, it's got hidden probabilities and secrets that allow him to exploit his own domain to keep hitting jackpots. That's why Hakari himself has said, even though the odds of hitting a jackpot is 1 out of 139, he has never actually gone more than 30 spins, and that's on his unluckiest days as well for his first spin, so that's without increased probability or increased spins. And of course, regardless of if you actually classify him as special grade, because maybe you don't think he fits the criteria of being able to face a military army or whatever, at the very least, we all have to accept that he is a special grade level combatant that's unquestionable. In terms of just pure combat when he's in jackpot itself, he's an absolute tank. Now, what about Ice Star Uraume, the monster as Kusakabe actually called them? Uraume is no joke. As we saw with just one regular frost calm, they were able to take out multiple semi-grade 1 and grade 1 sorcerers with ease. That's not at max output, by the way. And with max output, they were actually able to freeze Maki in place. Now, we don't know how much damage it did to Maki, but at the very least, it was actually able to hold it off long enough that she wasn't able to chase Uraume and Sukuna as they left with Nuaith. She was nowhere to be found. Though, of course, this is with frost calm at its max impact. And as we actually saw during Shibuya, Uraume does have other techniques, and that's just briefly from what we saw from Uraume, so who's telling what actual lethal techniques Uraume actually has if Uraume is placed into a one-on-one fight with someone? And of course, they also have reverse curse technique on top of it. Now, it's not clear if it's the second tier, since there's 3 tiers of reverse curse technique, and the second one allows you to heal poisons, but at the very least, they do have the first tier reverse curse technique, which is all you'll need in actual combat against someone who doesn't use poisons, so they can heal themselves. Now, how is a fight between these two gonna go? I actually think it may not be as favorable for Hakari as many people believe. Now, you may be wondering, it should be pretty easy since Hakari was able to at least stall out Uraume long enough in their own base that they were able to hit their first jackpot. So of course, now that Hakari's actually got jackpot, don't be deceived by Hakari looking like he's at full HP after the domain clash and thinking that, oh, base Hakari took no damage from Uraume. Remember that as soon as Hakari hits jackpot, all of his wounds are healed. After a chunk of his stomach or torso was completely ripped out by Charles, he hit jackpot, and when he's actually fighting Kashimo later on, he looked completely fine. It looked like he took 3 showers back to back to back. So in the same sense, because the domain ended and we saw Hakari hit jackpot, whatever wounds that Hakari may or may not have had would have healed. So we don't actually know how that fight went or how well Hakari did or didn't do, just to be fair. But now that Hakari has actually hit jackpot, he should in theory steamroll Uraume pretty easily because his jackpot is monstrous to say the least. I mean, look how he was doing against Kashimo. He was going blow for blow with the strongest and most lethal culling game player in the culling games. And it also brings into question, because Hakari has such a high level of output and just raw cursed energy emitting from him right now because he's in jackpot, would Uraume's ice even be able to freeze Hakari? Or it probably could if Uraume could just place their hand on Hakari and have some time to do a deep freeze, but Hakari is just not going to sit down and let that happen. The general attacks that Uraume used to freeze the grade 1, such as Frost Calm, I doubt that would work on Hakari right now. I mean, it probably would, but Hakari could easily heal from it or just break out of it, unless it's a max output attack, since that does seem very powerful. But again, Jackpot Hakari is equally as powerful, if not perhaps stronger. The biggest concern concern I have for Kinji Hakari right now, the gambler, is Uraume's domain expansion. Now, you may be questioning, that shouldn't be an issue, since some of you may or may not be aware that in the actual Japanese text, which for some reason was not included in both the Viz and TCB translations of JJK, it was actually said that Hakari's domain is strong against domain clashes or domain tug of wars. And yes, I double checked this with 2 translators in the JJK community who are both fluent in Japanese. Now, whatever strong means, because that's vague, is up to you, but what I personally take that as is that his domain wouldn't stop working just because there's a domain clash. His Richi scenarios and spins would still go on even if there is a tug of war, because it's not a lethal sure hit at the end of the day. And also because his curse technique is so heavily tied to his domain expansion, that probably is another reason why his domain is so strong against tug of wars. But back to my main point, shouldn't that mean that there's actually less of a concern for Kinji Hakari right now because his domain is strong against tug of wars? So even if Uraume does have their domain, it wouldn't do anything. Well, I don't think that's true. The reason I say this is because can Hakari actually cast the domain during Jackpot? And I don't mean after it, because as it was said by the narrator, as Hakari's cursed energy is actually replenished while he's in Jackpot, he can actually instantly recast his domain expansion as soon as the Jackpot ends. I don't mean as the Jackpot ends or when it ends, I mean during the Jackpot. So let's say he's a minute or 2 minutes in, can he cast the domain expansion? Now the answer to this, we don't actually know, but in my own personal opinion, I don't think he can. But again, I could be wrong about that. The issue is if he can't actually cast a domain expansion during Jackpot, because obviously he's currently got the Jackpot, so what would his domain even be spinning for? What would his domain even function for? If Uraume has their own domain expansion, they would be able to open it up on Hakari, and Hakari would be defenseless and absolutely obliterate Hakari, even if Hakari is in Jackpot. Though I'll put an asterisk there because he is in Jackpot, so that may help. Now the initial answer we may all go to is, does Hakari have a simple domain? Now I wish this was a clear-cut answer, but it's very inconsistent on who has a simple domain or who doesn't. Weirdly enough, there are actually some grade 1 sorcerers such as Naname and Meme who don't have a simple domain, where Meme actually carries along Ui Ui for this reason, and Naname just doesn't use a simple domain, as if he did have one he would have activated it against Mahito rather than just standing there accepting death. And these are supposed to be the peak of the modern day sorcerers that are extremely respected, grade 1 sorcerers. But let's be generous to Kinji Hakari and assume he does have a simple domain, because it might be weird if he doesn't, and even if he didn't before, maybe he spent the month training for it because he knows he'd be going up against monsters such as Sukuna and Uraume and Kenjaku, so he may have just been learning it for this specific battle, and there's no reason why at this point the actual world at stake that characters who do know a simple domain such as Kusakabe would refrain from it, because even if it was forbidden to teach other people, the higher ups are dead, who's keeping track of this? And again, it's for the fate of the world. The issue is that a simple domain just stands no chance against an actual domain expansion. This was seen obviously with Yuki, though you may argue that's a special case because Kenjaku's such a great barrier user, but Choso directly said it himself. He says, against an actual domain expansion, a simple domain can do nothing but buy a little bit of time. That's all it can do, because against the output of a domain expansion, a simple domain is just not gonna do it for you. And this was especially clear with 2 characters who were evenly matched, as it was directly said by the narrator that at least when their domains actually clashed, they were truly even. They were just equals in that aspect. Gojo's simple domain, which was massive by the way, and of course it's Satoru Gojo, so that's why simple domain looks so strong, it barely bought him enough time until Sukuna just simply stripped away the simple domain. So even if Kinji Hakari does have a simple domain, and even if he is in Jackpot to just boost the simple domain's energy or strength or efficiency, it shouldn't make that much of a difference, since even Gojo with the 6 eyes, his simple domain barely lasted at all. However, this doesn't mean it's over for Kinji Hakari. The reason I say this is because he's in Jackpot. As I said before, I put an asterisk there for a reason. His Jackpot allows him to heal from anything. As long as he just doesn't die or his head isn't destroyed, it doesn't matter how lethal something is, it can even destroy his torso or his limbs. Again, beside his head, he can heal from it. And if he does have a simple domain on top of it, that would actually be great, because not only does he not have to worry about cursed energy while he's in Jackpot, so he can just keep spamming simple domain over and over and over with, again, no regard to cursed energy. He's got an infinite supply. Even if it does keep getting stripped and then he gets hit by a sure hit, he'll simply heal from the sure hit with his unlimited reverse curse technique, cast simple domain again, buy himself a few seconds, and rinse and repeat. Though it does bring into question, could Uraume's domain expansion just one-shot Kinji Hakari? If it were base Kinji Hakari, I would say yes, but it is Jackpot Kinji Hakari. His defense and durability should be a lot stronger, though of course we saw it got penetrated many times by Kashimo, as he actually railed Hakari many times, right in the face as well, ripping it off. But as we saw twice later on in the fight, Kinji Hakari was actually able to amp up his cursed energy, his output, speed, strength, or whatever it was, and just become stronger and faster, as directly said by Kashimo. I think this fight with Uraume at least has the potential to be generational if it's focused on, because we don't know if GEGE is going to off-screen the whole fight since the first part was already off-screen, or like I said in the beginning, Maki just shows up, or anyone else could show up and try and stall Uraume while Hakari actually faces off Sukuna, because that may be a possibility. If if Sukuna gets confiscation or death penalty, Hakari may be like, oh, it's time to go in and take out Sukuna. But again, that could be Maki's role. I see no reason why it shouldn't be, since Maki's more suited to fight Sukuna because she does have the Soul Splitter Katana, and there's a question she even asked herself, could Sukuna actually heal from a swing from this blade? Regardless, if we do get Ice Star Uraume versus Kinji Hakari, I think the fight is going to be great, and I really do hope we get that. But if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content. Like I said in the beginning, less than 10% of people who actually watch my videos are subscribed. So if you love JJK, I promise you, you won't regret subscribing. And of course, thank you to all the channel members as well. It is much appreciated. If you've watched this far, you remember the Higuruma fan club. Thank you very much. That's all from me. Have a great day and take care.